called an 800 number. And I said, you know, I kind of explained, I'm wanting to help people. How can they gather their information and find out? What do you suppose was their first question they asked me? They wanted to know what bank it was on. I'm thinking it's a MasterCard. I called the MasterCard 800 number that I found on the website. Each MasterCard, Visa, those type of things, they're tied to specific banks. So if you look at the back of your card, there is an 800 number on that card. So as I talked with her at that point, since we didn't have access to this easily, basically what she finally came up with, the only way really to get, like say track down, like say my credit card number if I'd lost it, was to go to my credit report to get that. Well, at that point in time, you had to do it all through the mail, and it could have taken 2 weeks. Now, see, this is an option where you can get it instantly, so that does help speed up that process. But these things can happen quickly. Spring forward a few months, I was at a conference in Chicago, and with some coworkers from across the country, and some of us had gone out to eat that one evening. And one of my coworkers got ready to pay. She didn't have a credit card. She said, I had it when I checked into the hotel. So she said, well, we helped her cover, you know, get back to the hotel. It wasn't in her room. So we got talking about it, and she was like, what am I going to do? There was nobody at home where she could call to get the information. She was wanting to get it, you know, shut down quick. So as we were talking, I said, so I think back to this, I said, well, do you know what bank it was on? No, it was a Visa, but she didn't know what bank it was on. Well, luckily it was one of these situations where, you know, just happened to be the right place at the right time. She mentioned it was with a particular organization. I happen to have my Visa card with the same organization. So I was able to flip over my card, give her the 800 number. She called it. Her card had already been used, and it had been less than 24 hours since she knew she'd had it in her hand. But see, she was able to get that shut down quickly. So that's where you've got to be aware of all this kind of information. Other ways you can reduce your risk. Just reading your bank statements, your credit card statements, those medical benefits, read them. See if there's information there that doesn't make sense, it's not yours. When you get your credit report, if you find out information on there that's not yours, call Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, question them, try to find out what's going on. It may actually be your card, but you don't recognize the company name, something like that may be odd, but it may not be yours.
Well, I just had, like, literally a week ago, had a date pop up on my credit report that I didn't know, so I sent in the complaint or whatever, and they removed it
Yeah.
right away.
If you have something you challenge, they do have to investigate it. If they can find objective information, I mean, it may be just an honest mistake.
Yeah.
It may not be any kind of an identity theft. So if it's a mistake, you can get that report corrected. And that they can find objective information. If, however, they cannot find objective information, they will not take it off. But you have the right to add up to a 100-word statement giving your side of the story of why. And the example I typically use is like, say, in a divorce case, where say the judge is trying to figure this out. He sees this big MasterCard bill for $500 and it's for tools. Well, he's a mechanic. So it's pretty obvious that probably he should be paying that bill. So that's what the judge says. But it's a joint card. And the judge can't break that being a joint card. Well, she forgets about it. Well, then about 6 months later, debt collectors are after her because he's not paying that debt. So that's where it really is legitimate information, but see, she could put a 100-word statement explaining that. So then when the next creditor looked at that report, they could see that information. Look for charges that we said you didn't make. Be alert to bills that that don't come when you expect them, and then just follow up if you don't get your account statements when you're expecting them. Things like that things have been stolen out of your mailbox. Respond quickly to those notices from the IRS that we talked about. And here's that identity theft protection number. That's probably the number that you've been using. Secure your Social Security number. I heard someone, I won't ask you in here, someone comment about carrying their Social Security card with them. We don't recommend that you carry that around with you because that is just making it a little easier for someone else to steal your identity. Now, this is a tough situation for older people who are on Medicare because what's their Medicare number on their card? It's their Social Security number. So we're hoping at some point, like a driver's license, now most of you are probably young enough you don't remember, our driver's license used to have our Social Security number, and we had the option to opt out. Now I don't know that I don't think they do it anymore.
And they can't even require you to use your social
Our
security
ID number in college
Yeah.
used to be our social security number.
Yeah.
And they used to post it on the walls.
Oh, yeah.
When
I
you took
forgot
the
about that,
test.
yeah, your grade, to show your grades, yes, so,
Yes,
yeah,
they
yeah,
showed
there's
your
been a lot of
grades
things.
via your social security number.
See, you young kids, you're adults, but you know, you've missed out on a lot of the fun that we had in the past, right?
Yeah.
Protecting your personal information. Just keeping those important papers secure, like some of you are talking about, you know, if they're important, you're gonna wanna keep them locked up. You don't wanna leave them just lying around. You know, you have repair people in your house. You don't know who's in your house. Unfortunately, as we talked earlier, it could be just even some family members. Roommates. I know some of you, you know, you don't wanna think about it, but things can be tempting if we don't keep things,
Caregivers.
pardon?
Caregivers.
Caregivers, yes.
I'm a caregiver, and I've seen plenty of people being victimized by
Yeah,
those
and
that
that's,
come into their house.
that's really sad, isn't it?
Yes,
But
it is.
but it happens, so
Oh,
we
yeah.
need to keep those things secure. Be careful with your mail. You were talking earlier, those of you who had the mailbox, you know, you're talking about the mail coming in, but what about mail going out? Sometimes we're real tempted to just put, like, I've done before, I used to, I don't as much anymore, but like say take a clothespin or something and clip it to the mailbox, or some of you grew up out in the country with like a roadside mailbox. Well, what do? You put the flag up for the mailman and you leave the mail in there for the mailman to pick up. Well, in identity theft, you know, we didn't have to worry about that as much, like when I was growing up, but it's a major issue today. So it's suggested, you know, you don't leave mail outside on your mailbox, that you take it, deposit it in a mailbox, maybe ideally even within the post office, not even just one of these, you know, along the side of the street, because someone could come along and even break into that if you're really, really concerned about it. So, you know, think about what you're doing. Shredding those important documents, like some of you mentioned that. And, you know, we've talked in the past, you know, they were strip shredder, but those cross-cut, you know, they really tears it up even more. Don't overshare on networking sites. And we'll go on, I think the next ones go a little bit more about online impersonators, you know, protecting yourself. Do you know who's getting your information? And we're hearing more and more about Facebook and, you know, all the other social media sites where people share a lot of information about themselves that could allow them to become victims. Things like, I'm gone, I'm off on vacation. Well, that's kind of a flag to someone else, like, oh, okay, we can go get in their house type thing. So, or they'll share a lot of personal information. Well, what do we do a lot of times with passwords or some of those security questions? They ask for, like, say, your mother's maiden name or whatever. Well, if we've shared a lot of personal information out on those sites, it makes it very easy for someone to maybe guess what some of our passwords might be.
My brother and his family went on a cruise for 8 to 10 days, whatever, and on their Facebook page every day had pictures of where they were at. And I'm sitting there going, the good thing is right now they're having to live with my mother, so she was at home, but
That was, unless you know there's somebody in the house,
Yeah.
it may be better to wait and
they're
share
kind
all
of
that when
between,
you get home.
transitioning between homes, so they're living with her, so they weren't too worried about it. But
Yeah.
still, my mother's 73 years old, they could have came in and abducted her.
It kind of left her a
Yeah.
little bit wide open, didn't it? So a little nervous, yeah. Be careful about clicking on links and emails, which I already talked about. Also, or they'll tell you, you've got to call our 800 number, or you've got to contact us immediately. Well, it may, like the IRS, or like I've seen in the past, like say a bank. I got an email at my bank about you got to contact, you know, at work, on my work email about a bank. Well, number one, I didn't have an account with that bank, and number two, there was no way it was tied to my work email if I did. So that was a red flag for me. But yet, if you're still well, I do have an account with them, maybe this is legitimate. Instead of clicking on the links or calling that 800 number, go look up their number elsewhere and ask to talk to their customer service and ask them if they contacted you rather than trusting that. You know, we get those kind of gut feelings sometimes that something doesn't feel right. Listen to your gut there and be protective of yourself.
I had an issue with PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent an email, but they told me, go to our website. They didn't give me a link or anything. They said, go to our website and to the contact us page and please call us. And I kept putting it off because I thought it was a false thing. And finally, I went to use PayPal and couldn't get into it. And someone had hacked my account, but they had caught it.
They were protecting you.
And froze it. and until I called in, and I had to give them all sorts of information that only I would have known before they would even and I had to reset everything while I was on the phone with them. Of course, couldn't tell them any of that information, but they were like, we want to make sure it's done before we get off the phone.
And aren't you glad they did that?
Yeah.
They were looking out for you.
My bank will do that too.
Mhm.
So.
And sometimes credit card companies will do that. Say if, a few years back when I bought my first computer, I thought, I'm just gonna put this on my credit card. Well, I pretty quick had a call from the credit card company because I'd never put that kind of money, expense on a credit card before. So they wanted to make sure it was me. Well, I appreciated them doing that. Or sometimes if you're traveling, if you're going someplace that's out of the norm for you, they may raise some red flags about your card being used, say in California, if you've never been there before. So if you are concerned about doing some traveling like that or international, you might want to let your card carrier know that, hey, I am going, this is where I'm going, so my card may be used there. Computers. You mentioned antivirus, software, spyware, anti-spyware, firewalls. Anything you can put up to protect yourself is really a good idea. Creating strong passwords. Don't just use your first name or 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sure you all have already heard all that kind of stuff before, but we get busy, we get lazy, sometimes we forget. So a lot of this is just a reminder of things for you to think about. Keeping operating system, browser, security, everything up to date. Encrypting the data, being careful when you use Wi-Fi. Even here on campus, information can get public. So if you're doing banking or whatever, you might not want to do that unless you're sure you're on a secure, encrypted type website. Locking your laptop, having passwords on your laptop, on your cell phone, so that just not anybody can get into them. Reading the privacy policies so you know exactly what the policies are. Then, if someone has stolen your identity, you need to be sure to act fast. And we've got 3 steps for you to take, and we're almost out of time. I'm watching time real close, so we're going to finish up here with back into the booklet again. The first one is place an initial fraud alert, and I'm not going to read this to you, but just so you know, basically what's on the slides is in that booklet. You can contact one of the 3 credit consumer reporting agencies, 800 number. They will notify the other 2. The initial fraud alert is good, I believe it's for 90 days. And you can get them the possibility to extend that. That is done free of charge. They can go a little deeper, really locking it down with what's called a credit freeze. In most states, there are some costs to that. And anytime, say, you want to buy a car, get out a loan or whatever, you're going to have to unfreeze it because nobody can get into it. And it costs you to unfreeze it. So there's more information in the book about that. But just so you're aware that is an option. Then order copies of your credit reports, and I said earlier you can get those free of charge if you have been a victim. And above and beyond these free ones that you get from the annualcreditreport.com, contact them, see if there's any kind of information that's out there that does look like, oh, this is something going on. Get copies, as I said, you get copies free, and then report any errors or anything that looks weird to you. And then create identity theft report, which I think you were kind of alluding to that. This gives you rights to recover more quickly. You can file this with the Federal Trade Commission. They also suggest filing a police identity theft report. Sometimes the police it may not be as willing, but visit with them. There's some forms in the back of that book that can help you with doing this, and I would encourage you to kind of read through that. Some more specific information about different types of things that you can do to protect yourself and what to do if you do become a victim.
Joplin Police took my report over
They
the
did.
phone. I didn't even
Wonderful.
have to go down, and they didn't come to me. I called Missouri Southern Police first, and they referred me on to Joplin Police, and they took it completely over phone.
Right.
You have to know the badge number, the officer number, and the report date.
And did you get a written copy of that
Yes.
report then? And see that, then she can file that, and see that helps you with getting some of this cleared up, as well as getting access to, say, those
I had to go onto the federal
phrases.
government site and file the identity theft affidavit, and I have to put that and the police report together and mail them both in with my tax return.
Great, so that's good. And go to the Federal Trade Commission website. Another great website I would encourage you to go to is Missouri Attorney General's website, because that's another place where they have some good information about protecting yourself. They also have an 800 number for kind of an identity theft, consumer protection hotline, so another in-state source of information. What questions do you have then?
I have a last tip.
The last tip.
Yeah, a few years ago, our bank was, they'd gotten information from our bank, so they knew our account numbers. And we weren't aware of this, to my knowledge, but they called my wife on a Saturday morning, somebody did, and said, we're from the bank, and we need your PIN number. And she gave it over the phone, along with 12 other people in the community that gave their PIN numbers. So we went to the bank, that was on a Saturday. That's when they want to do it, when the banks aren't open, you know, generally speaking too. We got it shut down in time when I found out about it. And we went to the bank on Monday, and in Dublin, Ireland, they had tried to use an ATM machine to hack our account. And they tried to do it for like $600, but we had a $500 daily limit, so that transaction didn't go through. And you could see every transaction they did. They ended up getting like $285, but luckily for us, the bank absorbed it since they had been hacked originally. But don't give your PIN numbers out.
And when I called the bank, my bank had a credit protection service that I didn't even know that I was entitled to. So my bank did a lot of stuff for me, and then they placed alerts on all my accounts for me because I bank at Arvest, and if you have an account at Arvest, you get this service automatically.
So that's a question to check, with your bankers, what kind of assistance that they can provide. There are other credit protection services out there. You need to decide whether it's worth, there are charges for some of those. Some are free, some are charged, so figure out what is,
My
in your
bank
best
will call
interest.
me with an automated system asking me exactly if these charges were correct.
So they did check with you, it's effective, it's costing banks too, so they want to shut it down quick as well as you
And
want.
when you're shopping online, make sure the website is HTTPS. S stands for secure. I kind of think what happened is I had a credit card that was used like in Czechoslovakia or somewhere about 3 months ago. And my credit card company caught it, so I'm wondering if that's somehow connected. But yeah, make sure you're using a secure website when you're doing online shopping.
And maybe have a card, I hear some people talk about having a card that's just dedicated. If you really are doing a lot of shopping online, you may want to get just one credit card that you just, and maybe limit the
prepaid.
credit limit on
Ours
it.
has prepaid cards. I use the prepaid cards.
Okay, or prepaid card, that's another good idea. So that way, they might get some, but they're not going to get all your information or all your money. Well, I think we're at the end of our time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Appreciate it.
If I can give another call, let me know.